Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at day number 1 of the 2024 FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Championships. Now, there are 2 separate tournaments. There's a Rapid event over 3 days consisting of 13 rounds, and there's also a Blitz tournament over 2 days at the end. Now, in the Rapid event, with day number 1 occurring today, there are 5 rounds, and with so many games to play, I simply cannot cover all my games. So as such, we're going to start with the 3rd game of the event. Now, the first round, I had a very back and forth, shaky game against Rinat Yumabayev. The game would end in a draw. In the second round, I beat one of the youngsters in the event, and we're going to pick it up in the 3rd round. I'm on 1.5 points out of 2, and I'm playing with the white pieces against Alexander Donchenko from Germany. Now, you may remember Alexander Donchenko recently played in St. Louis. He defeated Fabiano Caruana in the last round of the St. Louis Masters to almost ruin Fabiano's dream of qualifying for the candidates. So, let's pick up the action. I have the white pieces, 1.5 points out of 2. The time control, by the way, is 15 minutes with a 10-second increment per move. So I start with e4, we get c6, d4, d5, e5, and now we get the Botvinnik system within the Caro-Kann with this move c5. Now, one of the things when you're playing in this tournament is that there's not a lot of time to prepare between the rounds. When you go into a game, usually if a long game, it ends, you wait 10-15 minutes, next round begins. So really this event is almost a test of who has the best general knowledge versus who can prepare the best. So I take on c5, get e6, and now I play this move knight f3. Now, of course, there are many different ways to play against this system. I simply am looking for a way to develop my pieces. So I go knight f3, we get bishop c5, bishop d3, and now we have the move knight e7. I castle, we get knight c6, and now I play the move knight bd2. We get knight g6, knight b3, bishop b6, and now I play the move rook to e1, guarding the pawn on e5. Here, Donchenko plays the move castles, and now in this position, I play the move bishop takes knight. Now, this is a move that I did not necessarily want to play, but the reason I play this is that even though this is a Caro-Kann opening, this is very similar to a French where black potentially has a very bad light square bishop on c8. So we get takes, I go bishop e3, we get bishop c7, and now I play the move bishop c5. We get rook f5, I go knight d4, takes, and now I play queen takes d4. You might notice that black currently is at 2 Bs on c8 and c7. However, this light square B is very, very passive behind this pawn one. So we get bishop d7. I go rook e3. Now, this is the first moment in the game where I thought I should have played the move h4 to stop black from playing g5, but ultimately I chose not to play this move. I thought that I should play rook e3 and rook e1, and that h4 was simply taking too much time. So we get g5. I play rook e1, rook c8, and now I play the move c3 here. One of the ideas in this position for white is that I want to move my queen, let's just say to d2, and down the road I want to play knight to d4, creating a bastion where the knight hits the pawn and the rook. Unfortunately, in this position, after c3, h6, I play the move queen d1, and my idea is to play knight d4, but you'll notice there's one very big issue, where after black goes queen e8, if I play the move knight to d4, black can take on e5, and after I take the bishop, he wins the bishop on c5. Now, this position is not bad for white, even though you're down a pawn. Black has double pawns here, there's a weak pawn on e6, and white has no issues. Now, ultimately in the game, I chose not go into this variation because I thought it was a little bit too equal, and having 1.5 points out of 2, I already thought I needed to try for more and be optimistic. So I go h3, and now we get to move bishop d8, and the big issue that I have in this position is that my bishop is somewhat misplaced. If I ever go bishop to a3, after bishop b6, knight d4, and rook f4, I have a temporary bastion, but you'll notice that the bishop is always spying the knight, the rook, the pawn, and the king on the long diagonal. So I have this conundrum where I want to get the knight to d4, but I also need the bishop on c5. If the bishop goes away, I yield this diagonal. And when I go bishop d4 and we get to move queen g6, now the bishop takes away the d4 square from the horse, and it's actually not easy to play. So I go knight h2, we get b6, rook f3, rook takes, knight takes, and now we get the move g4, takes, and here I play bishop e3 with the idea of going knight to d4 and creating the bastion, because now there's a pawn on b6, so you can no longer use this diagonal for the bishop. So we got bishop e7, queen d2, rook f8, knight d4, now we get h5, queen d1, queen g6, queen c2, and ultimately we finally reach this endgame with queen takes queen and knight takes queen being played. Here we got the move g5 from Donchenko. I play knight d4, h4, and now I go for the move f3. Now you'll notice here position is pretty balanced, same material for both sides. However, these pawns can be targeted on g5 and h4, and I also have a very nice placed knight on d4. So we get king g7. I go a4, we get king f7, not bishop takes pawn, because then knight takes pawn would fork the rook and the king. So we get king f7. I play rook a1, we get a5, and now I go g3. Donchenko plays rook g8. If he were to take, I would go king g2 and capture the pawn on g3. So we get rook g8. I play the move king g2, we get g4, takes, and now I play the move king to h3. Now this is an attempt to try and win this game. You'll notice that at this point in the game, I am down 2 minutes on the clock, but remember, with a 10-second increment, there is no such thing as time pressure, because 10 seconds is what you get for every move. So even if you get down to 1 second, you will have 11 seconds after your move. So we get rook g2. I play b3, rook b2, bishop c1, rook f2, bishop e3, rook b2, and now I play the move h5. Donchenko plays king g8, and now I play the move rook f1, trying to win this pawn at f3 without blundering my queenside pawns on b3 or a4. So we get bishop e8. I play h6, we get bishop h5. Here I play rook g1, not knight takes f3, by the way, because now after the move rook c2, I have to go bishop d4, and after king to h7, suddenly these b's cover a lot of squares here. There's also pressure on the pawn on c3, pressure on the pawn on h6, and if anybody's better here, I actually think it's black. So I play rook g1. We get king h8 here, not king h7, of course, because then there would be rook g7, creating the classic kebab and winning the game. So we get king h8. I play the move knight takes pawn, we get f2, rook f1, and now we get the move rook b3, and here I play bishop d4. Donchenko plays king h7, trying to attack the pawn on h6, and now I play the move rook takes f2. He gobbles on h6, and here I make a mistake when I play the move rook g2. Now this move is simply an oversight. I really like this move because what I'm threatening to do here is if black plays, say, rook a3, I have bishop e3 check, king h7, and rook g7, winning the bishop on e7 here. If black were to play a move like bishop to e8, check, and go king h5, to avoid rook g7, now I have knight g7, checkmated the king on h5, the king is stuck, and the game ends. However, the computer prefers move king g3 here with the idea of rook to h2 here, or the idea of knight to f4 as well, and with this weak king and bishop on this open h file, white is substantially better. Instead, I go rook g2, thinking I have bishop e3 and winning the game, and Donchenko finds this great defensive move, bishop c5. It takes away the bishop e3 check, and now we're headed towards an endgame. So I play king h4, or not an endgame, towards a simplified endgame, I should say. He checks, I go back, he plays bishop c5, and now I play this move rook g3, once again trying to be optimistic and play for the win. We get bishop f7, I take on c5, and now we get the move bishop e6. I play king h4, and here we get rook b8, and now I go rook f3 with the idea of rook f6. Donchenko plays rook g8, and now I play the move bishop e3, king h7, and bishop g5. We get king g7, rook f6, and now the move bishop d7. Now at this point in the game, white is up 1 pawn here. I have an extra pawn in this endgame, but with such limited material on the board and the opposite colored bishops here, the chances of winning are fairly low. That being said, it is a game of bullet where we're under a minute, but with the 10-second increment, there is still a lot of time left to think for both sides. So here I play rook d6. We get bishop a4, takes a4. I take on d5. We get rook a8, and now I play e6, trying to push my wide peepos up the board and create a queen. We get bishop c6, rook d6, bishop e8, and now I play the move e7 here with the idea that if black plays a4, I have rook d8 attacking the rook and the bishop at the same time and winning the game. So Donchenko goes king f7, I check. If I play rook d8, he slides the rook up, and now black is trying to push p down the a file here and win the game. So I check. We get king g7, not king takes pawn, because then I have rook to a6 here, creating the classic fossil where I check the king and win the rook on a8. So we get king g7, rook f8, a4, c4, a3, check, king g6, and now I play the move bishop a1. Now you're probably thinking here that with the wide peepos, the rook being locked on the f8 square, I have great chance to win the game, but as you'll notice from the evaluation bar, computer says this is zeros. So we get a2. Rook f6, king h7, rook f8, king g6, and now I play king g3. Now here, Donchenko plays the move rook c8, and this is an excellent move here because after I play king f2, he can now take the juicer on c4, sacking the bishop, but after king to f7, black will win either the rook or the pawn, and when black wins the pawn, you'll notice that we are in the dreaded rook and bishop versus rook endgame, which with correct play should be a draw. Now, obviously, I have other games to cover, so we're not going to go over this endgame in depth, but this game would continue for many, many moves. Now, we're going to skip way ahead here to this currently is move 78. We're going to skip way ahead here to move number 122. Now, after defending for many moves right around here, Donchenko finally blunders with king g4, king h3, and now after king to f3, we've reached a theoretically winning endgame here for white. However, you'll notice the computer here says that it is 0.00, and the reason for that is that if black is precise, he will be able to reach 50 moves without losing the game. So we get check. I block. He plays rook to a4, so that if I check, there is rook h4, and now I play the move rook c6. We get rook b4, rook c1, rook b2, and now I play the move rook d1. Donchenko plays rook a2, I play rook d5, and now he goes rook a4. Here I play bishop c5, and we get this move rook c4. Now this move would be a huge blunder ordinarily, because after bishop d4, suddenly this king is stuck. If you go to h2, there's rook h5, checkmating the king on h2. If you don't move the king and you move the rook anywhere here, there's rook h5, checkmate. So the only move to save the game is king h4, and the reason this saves the game is because after check, king h3, and rook to h5 here, Donchenko claims a draw because when he plays this move rook to h4, this will be his 128th move. Remember, the pawn that I captured was on move number 78. So Donchenko is able to claim a draw by 50 move rule here. If there was even one less move, I win the game. But this move literally is 50. So I end up drawing one move from checkmate, and I have a heartbreaking draw in the third round. So with this draw, which is really, really difficult to deal with, this puts me on a score of 2 points out of 3. I'm not off to a great start, but a lot of the other top players are struggling as well. Jan Nepomniachtchi at this point already has 2 draws. Ali Reza has lost 1 game and won 2. Fabiano, same situation, 2 wins and a loss. So all the top guys are dropping points very, very early. So I draw the third round, which means that in the fourth round, I'm now playing with the white pieces against Grandmaster Luca Moroni from Italy. Now, many of the players who are playing in this tournament have played online over the last couple of years, and Luca is another strong grandmaster who I am very familiar with. So we get d4. Here I play d5, c4, and now I play c5. Now this opening, I don't know exactly what it's called, but I like to call it the box because white has pushed his pawns, I pushed my pawns, and we've created a very nifty box in the center with the 4 pawns. So I put my pawns on the mirror squares, and you'll probably also remember this is what I played against Ramesh Babu, Pragnanan, in the candidates earlier this year. So we get knight f3, takes, knight f6, takes, knight c3, takes, a6, and now we get the move g3. I play e5, knight b3, knight c6, bishop g2, and now I play the move a5. Now up to this point, this is following my candidates game against Prague. At this point, Moroni plays the move bishop to g5. Now, there are many ways for white to play. One of the great things in this event, of course, is that players are playing on memory. You don't have time to prepare, so a lot of what you come up with is going to be over the board versus home cooking. So we get bishop g5. I play a4, knight d2, and now I play a3, and here we get the move bishop takes knight. I take, he takes, I take, and now we get the move rook b1. Here I castle, and we get the move castles. Now at this point, we've reached the middle game. We're on move number 16. You'll notice that I have the 2 Bs here, but due to the lack of pawns on the queen side, literally the a2 pawn and the b7 pawn, combined with all these pawns on the king side, this is very, very solid, and the game should end in a draw. So much like the last time that I played in the FIDE World Rapid Championship in 2022, you will remember that I drew something like 6 or 7 games in a row to end that tournament, and it's looking like I'm in that slog mode where I'm going to have a lot of draws early in this event this year. So we get rook d8. Knight c4 is played, and now I play the move bishop e6. Now the logic behind this move is that even though I'm sacking a pawn on b7 here, because both of the knights are hanging, I figure that I can never lose. So here I go knight d4, and this is a move that I played because much like in the third game, I felt like I need to press for more, even if objectively bishop takes c4 is the easiest way to draw here with something like f5 and e4. I thought it was too flat, and I should try to play for something where even if it's a draw, I keep the pieces on the board, and most importantly, I try to hit the pawns on a2 and e2 at the same time. So here, Moroni plays knight b6, I play rook to a5, and now we get the move e3, and here I play knight f5. Now you will notice here that white is currently up an extra pawn on a2, but due to the placement of the b's here, the knights on b6 and c3 not really having access points in this position, I didn't really feel like I was in any danger of losing. The other good thing here is I'm way up on time. I'm 3.5 minutes on the clock. And usually when you play in these events with Rapid and Blitz, a lot of what matters more than anything is the time usage. So we get knight to a4 here. Now I play the move king g7. We get rook b5, rook a7, and now rook b1. And here I play the move rook d2. Now Moroni plays rook b7 here. We trade the rooks, and now I play the move knight d6. Now, I could consider bishop to a2 here, and probably after takes, white sacks the rook. Bishop d5, king g7 takes, and due to the opposite color bishops here, this should still be a draw, but there is zero chance to win and only chances to lose. So I play knight d6. We get rook b1, and here I play the move f5. This is a move designed to take away the e4 square from the horse, but also potentially to play f4 or e4 in this position. Here we get rook d1, I trade, I take on a2, and now we're in an endgame where we have even material, all the pawns on the same side, but luckily for me, I have the two b's in this position, so with the two b's, which can attack from distance, I have some slight chances to maybe win the game. So we get knight c3, bishop b3, bishop d5, of course I have to keep the bishops on the board, and now we get knight b6. Here I play bishop b4, and Luca makes a huge mistake here by playing the move knight to a2. Now this move does not lose the game, to be clear, but after knight to a2, my bishop is going to dominate this horse for the rest of the game. Preferable would have been to play knight to e2 here, a simple move, moving the knight closer to the king side here, and after say f6, knight c4, for example, if I trade the knights, this is an easy draw, the knight is very close to the king, and black can never win. Instead, Luca plays knight a2, and now after bishop d2, what I mentioned before is that this horse is getting dominated by the bishop. The horse simply has no squares. Luca plays knight c4, I trade, and now I go e4, and at this point, it's very, very dangerous because the knight can never get into the game here. The bishop covers all the critical squares, and you also can't bring the king close because if you go king f1, I can check, takes, and again, with this knight stuck here, no squares available, I start to bring my king closer. Eventually, what will happen is something like h3, king here, g4, and now I walk my king closer, and I gobble this horse, which is stuck on the edge of the board. So Luca goes king g2. King f6, h3, and here I play this move h5. And this is a move that I actually kind of regretted later on. I thought I should have played bishop d3 first, so that now the king is glued to g2. It can never access the f1 square. And then maybe something like bishop to e2 followed by king to e7 or h6. Now, ultimately, the reason I chose to play h5 instead here is I actually thought that after bishop e2, white could go g4 here, and white was completely fine. Now, in retrospect, I should have gone for this because after takes, bishop takes e4, I can play bishop e6, targeting the horse, bishop b1, and now after h5, this horse is still stuck on the edge, but more importantly, the bishop is also stuck now guarding the knight forever, so I can start to push p, use the bishops, and I think practically speaking, this should be winning. Instead, I play h5. Now, when I played h5, this was sort of a miscalculation on my part because after h4, bishop d3, bishop b3, bishop e2, now Luca starts to simply wait with the king. Remember, the horse is dominated, but because this light square b cannot target the knight, this bishop covers along diagonal, white simply intends to chill with the bishop on these squares. So I go king e7, we get this, I play king d6, king c5, and now we get bishop e6. Here I play the move bishop g4, and the reason that I did not play bishop c4, you should probably think, why not? If he trades, I take, and again, this knight is going to be gobbled here as no squares available, and I will win the game. The reason I did not go for this after takes, and this move bishop takes e4 here, if I play bishop d5, for example, white can simply trade, go king to f3, followed by g4, and the game will end in a draw. And if I play bishop f7, for example, white can simply play bishop to f5, let's say king d5 here, and white will simply wait with the bishop even on d1 here, and ultimately, even though I have an extra bishop for 2 pawns, it should be a draw. So I go bishop g4 instead. Simply the idea is just to keep the piece on the board, try to walk my king up the queen side, and hopefully we'll get a blunder. So we get bishop f7, king d6, bishop c4, I do some dilly-dallying once again, and eventually we reach this position with the king on b5. Now what I'm hoping for here is that since white can't move the horse, to any of these squares, white will move the bishop to, say, e6. Now, if white goes bishop e6, the idea is to go king a4, march this king up the board, and try to win the horse. Now, what's funny about this is that even here, apparently white is still okay because the bishop will always target the pawn and the knight, or I guess here you go here, and then after bishop d1, then there's bishop e6, and it's still probably a draw. But if I get the king down to b2, where it's going to gobble the horse, there are some chances. So logically, Luca goes king g2. I do some more dilly-dallying all over the board, and finally we reach this position where I play this move f4. Now the reason I played f4 here is that I figure there's no way for me to lose. This knight is dominated forever, so as long as the knight can't get in the game, when I play f4, it's very much a 50-50. Either Luca takes with a g-pawn or the e-pawn. Either way, no chance to lose, but if he makes the wrong capture, like he does in the game, white is in serious trouble. So what Luca plays here is he takes with the e-pawn. If he takes with a g-pawn here, frankly, there's no way for me to win. But after e takes on king c5, what you'll notice here is that now I have an access point for my king. Before, if we just look at this position, you'll notice that the four entry squares are all covered. Bishop covers a4 and c4. Knight covers b4 here. If my king goes to c5, the pawn covers d4. So with all four of these entry squares covered by the knight, the bishop, and the pawn, my king can't get in. But when Luca takes with the e-pawn, now my king is getting to d4, and at this point, it's very, very hard to play. Frankly, I think it's actually just losing in human practice, even if the computer says it's okay, because after bishop f7, king d4, bishop g6, now I play the move bishop g4. We get bishop f7, and now I run my king into d3 and e2, and once my king gets to e2, as you're about to see, what I can do here is I can start to chase the base of the pawn chain with bishop b6, and once I win this pawn, everything collapses. So Luca goes bishop f7, bishop b6, knight b4, takes, king h2, and now after this move bishop c5, Luca resigns the game because after the move knight to d5, I can now play the very nasty idea king to f1 here, and when white takes on f6, I check, and after king h3, there's bishop g2, checkmating this king here with the two b's and the pawn. Now, if white were to play g4, the other option here, I can simply take with the h-pawn, and after h5, I go check, king here, check, king here, and now I play the move bishop to h4, followed by g3 and g2, and there should be a checkmate in a few moves. So after this move bishop to c5, I get a miraculous win in this fourth game. On some level, I feel like it's some kind of justice for not winning the third game due to the 50-move rule. I get the big win, and with that win, now I'm back in business with 3 points out of 4. Now, because it's such a long day with 5 rounds, I have to really keep it together. I have one more game left, and in the final game of the day, the 5th game, I'm playing with the white pieces against Grandmaster Zaven Andriazian from Armenia. So I play e4. We get c5, knight f3, d6. Here I play check, not in the mood to play the Najdorf today. So I check, we get this, and now I castle, bishop d7, and here I play the move c4. Now Zaven plays the move g6, a very aggressive approach. Black could play e5, trying to clog the toilet here, where the center of the board is very static. Both sides will have their diamond hand formations with the pawns here, but at any rate, it's very, very slow. So we get g6. I play knight c3, bishop g7, takes, and now I go for d4. We get takes, knight f6, and here I play the move h3. And at this point, black has the two b's here, but this is a classic Moraxi structure where I have d's knights in the center combined with the pawns on c4 and e4. We get castles. I play queen e2, e5, knight f3, and now we get the move queen e7. Here I play rook d1, we get rook a d8, and now I play the move bishop e3. Now, one of the reasons I played h3 earlier was to stop either knight to g4 or bishop g4, and here it's really nice that black cannot harass the bishop with knight g4. So we get bishop c8. I go rook d2, knight h5, and now I play the move rook d1, trying to create the classic double stack on the file. Now, at this point, I thought I should be better immediately, but after the move knight to f4 is played, I suddenly realized that this bishop on g7 is going to open up on the diagonal if I don't capture the knife on f4, and already here I had this feeling it's kind of going in the wrong direction. To add insult to injury, you'll also notice that at this point I'm also down quite a bit of time on the clock, nearly 3 minutes. So we get bishop e5. I go knight b3 here, and this is a move that I kind of regretted after the fact. I felt that maybe I should put the knight on e2, maybe try to play b4, for example, but pretty much anything except knight b3, because my initial thought here was that after knight b3, let's just say black goes to h6, I can go knight a5, force the bishop to the corner, and now after b4, I've got this nice knight that's hooked on a5, targeting the pawn. I can play for something like b5 down the road to create create an outpost here for the knight. I can also play for c5 as well with knight c4. So with all these great ideas, I thought I should be better. But after knight b3, Zavan plays the move queen f6, and this is an excellent move because now if I go knight to a5, bishop to a8, you'll notice that I cannot play the move b4 here because then I would hang the horse, and if I move my horse away, now black can play c5, opening up the diagonal, and suddenly both of the bishops are very active. So I spent a long time here before ultimately playing the move c5, and when I played this move, I had sort of resigned myself to the fact that this game would be a draw. Keep in mind, I'm down nearly 6 minutes on the clock. There's some moments, especially in a long tournament like the Rapid or Blitz are here, where you have to just make sure that you control the game and you don't risk a loss. So I go c5. We get takes, I take, and now we get the move bishop c8. And this move is a slight mistake here. Apologies, you guys. My throat was getting a little bit dry. What should have happened is the rook should have been traded, followed by bishop c8, because now if I play knight d3, very similar to the game, black can always trade, and after queen f4 here, there's this move rook to d8, and now white has nothing better than to force a draw with knight e5, sacking the rook, and making a draw by perpetual with check, check, check forever. Instead, we get bishop c8, and now after knight d3, suddenly the knight is attacking the bishop and the pawn at the same time, and after takes, takes, takes in this position, now I have two rooks guarding each other, so when Zavan plays bishop e6, I'm able to move my knight, breaking the pin here, and after takes, takes, we've reached a pretty static position. Both sides have the same number of pawns, but with this great knight on e5 that can hit the pawn and jump to a lot of light squares here, there are some chances to maybe win the game. So we get king g7. Here I play the move king h2. Oddly enough, the computer wants rook d6, but I thought when I go king h2, I dodge any checks on the back rank. I can play rook d6, rook d3, or even h4, h5, h6, trying to create a classic Wally checkmate on the king side here with queen to f6 and queen g7. So we get h6. Now I play the move rook d3, Zavan plays queen c2, and after the move rook to f3, black is suddenly in all kinds of trouble because I'm using this double stack and I'm threatening to play queen f6. Sample line would be queen c5, check, king h7, and now I can sack the horse because if black takes a knight, I win the rook and the game. If black goes king g8, I can still sack the horse because after takes, 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 I have queen e6, and suddenly I'm up a bunch of pawns and it's checkmate in a few moves. So here Zavan plays f6. At this point, I think he was already kind of cracking a little bit. After king to h7, apparently white has to play rook d3, and the game goes on. My idea was to play queen f6 and play knight takes g6, but apparently there's queen e4, which I actually didn't even consider, which saves the game. Instead, Zavan plays f6, and this move loses the game because now I can sack the horse. He takes, I check, and black has to go king f7. If you play king to h7 here, I can play queen d6, attacking the rook and the bishop. If you play rook e8, I check, and then queen g7 is simply checkmate. And if you play any other move, like you move the bishop, I take, and I'll mate on the g file, so black is simply getting mated. So Zavan goes king f7, I check, king e8, I check, king e7, and now I take the pawn on a7. Now here he plays the move king to e8. If black were to block, I can check here, and after block, takes, 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 we're in an endgame here where I simply have two extra pawns, and I should win the game. Additionally, black can also try to go king d6 here, but after queen to a3 check, c5 here, I have the move rook to d3 check, and now black can maybe go king e5, but I think after queen to a6 with the idea of queen d6 here, it's a classic 90-degree right triangle, and the black king is simply going to get mated. So Zavan instead goes king e8, now I check, queen c7, king e8, and now you'll see why I did this little dilly-dally checking with the queen, because after king e8, now I have rook to a3, doing a rook lift to the queen side, and now my idea is quite simple. I want to go for the classic ladder checkmate with the rook and the queen, where the king gets stuck on the back rank. So after rook to a3, Zavan plays the move bishop d7, and here I play the move queen d6. This is very precise because even though rook to a8 probably wins the game here, after king e7, takes, 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 and queen takes e4, white has an extra pawn on the queen side, but both these pawns are passed pawns. Black can try to create a perpetual by checking on f4, e5, and there's still a long way to go. Luckily here, I spent my time, I played the move queen to d6, and now black is simply toast because rook to a8 will win the game now on the next turn. So we get bishop c8, desperate attempt to try and keep it going. I play rook a8, we get king f7, and now I play the move rook a7 check, and because there's no coverage with a pawn on the g file, the king will be mated in a few moves. Now if black goes king e8, there's queen e7 mate. If you go to g8, I check, Black blocks, takes, king h8, queen g7, also is checkmate. So Zavan plays this move, king g6. Now I play the move queen takes f8, and here he resigns the game because I've won the rook. I'm still chasing the king on g6 with rook g7 or queen g8, and at this point, it's all but over. So I get a very, very big win in the 5th game to win a 2nd game in a row. With this win, this puts me on 4 points out of 5. I'm a half point out of 1st place. There are still 8 more rounds to go, 4 more rounds tomorrow. So I'm right where I want to be. I said this in my interview on my Kick channel after the game ended. One of the big things for me with the Rapid event is that you simply want to be in the hunt. With so many games, even if the first day doesn't go your way, as long as you stay in there and you're half point, 1 point off the lead, if you can put together a streak at any moment, you can definitely win. So I'm very, very pleased with this result because generally in the Rapid event, I've struggled a lot over the years. I think 1 or twice I've done very well, but usually on the first day, things go south for me. So to be in the hunt is really, really nice, and I'm very, very happy thus far. So, on that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the first day of the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Championship being held in New York City, New York. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more great recaps after day 2 and day 3. But at any rate, I'm off to a good start, and I'm feeling really good, so I hope you guys are feeling the same way that I do. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye!